fastest 5090 on the entire planet. At least that's what MSI have told me. For some reason, we're seeing all of these crazy flagship 5090s launching at the same time, and this one is the most interesting because it has a 1000 watt power limit. We'll get to the massive screen in just a minute, but I just want to show you how overbuilt and tanky this graphics card is. These AIO models are nothing new, but this is easily the craziest that I've seen on the market. You get a full coverage cold plate, similar to what you'd get on a custom water cooling block. The whole thing is 2.5 slots thick, despite there not being a heat sink or any fans. There's carbon fiber on the back and on the side, and it even has two 16-pin power connectors. First time I've seen that on a 5090, and to be honest, maybe it should be the standard. We've seen how hot just one of those connectors can get with 600 watts running through it, so why not overspec them? Ironically, here, both of these do actually get some pretty solid use. And then under the hood, there's an insane 40-phase VRM to spread out all of that power and heat, up from the usual 30 or so phases that you'll see on most 5090s, which is already pretty crazy. Now, this area is mostly for extreme overclocking. Once you're pushing 900 watts plus, we're talking like liquid nitrogen, breaking records in 3D Mark, pushing the absolute limit. MSI say you can run this thing at 1000 watts all day, no problem. But what does any of this extra stuff actually mean for you and I playing games? Well, something that I personally look for on these juiced up third-party cards is the GPU running at a higher voltage, because with a 360ml liquid cooler, a massive copper cold plate, and a huge 1000 watt power ceiling, all of those things are actually kind of pointless unless you can run the GPU at a higher voltage and take advantage of higher clock speeds. But here we actually do. This thing out of the box runs at 3 gigahertz flat. That's over a 300 megahertz factory overclock compared to the Founders Edition. Sounds like a lot in terms of raw clock speed, it is, but the performance gains in actual gaming, I didn't see that much at all. 2% in Forza Horizon at 4K, 3% in Cyberpunk, and about 5% in God of War. Seems like the more power the card is pulling, the more performance it can actually offer over the base model. In Firmark, for example, this thing can pull over 900 watts, which is absolutely insane for a single GPU. And what's even more insane, it can actually maintain 3 gigahertz while doing that. To be honest, I'm surprised this thing didn't melt. It didn't even blink. I mean, this looks like absolute torture seeing that amount of power going through the card, but it handled it completely fine. For comparison, the Founders Edition gets heavily power throttled here in the same benchmark and runs 650 megahertz lower. I know it's a really extreme example, most people aren't running benchmarks for pure enjoyment, but it is an area where you will see a distinct difference here between this and a regular 5090. And since I had AMD's new 9850X 3D on hand, I decided to drop it in and put basically the fastest gaming PC hardware specs all on one test bench. The only thing that could really beat this would be an RTX 6000 Pro. I don't have one of those on hand, but man, after overclocking this thing, I would say this might actually even be faster. I was able to get this running at almost 3.3 gigahertz, which is over 20% higher than a stock 5090. Man, at that point, we're only limited by voltage, we're nowhere near the power or thermal limit. And yeah, the scores in 3D Mark are pretty insane. This is the first time I've really tried to tinker with hardware, overclock, and push high scores in these benchmarks, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. We're substantially faster than a stock 5090 here, as you can see, and the only scores we're getting beaten by are those voltage modded 5090s and those using liquid nitrogen. To be anywhere near those scores with zero modding is really insane. As for gaming though, again, it just kind of becomes a question of how much you can load up the GPU. Some games are going to show more of a benefit than others. After overclocking, we do see more of a benefit. So now 9% in Cyberpunk and 12% in God of War. The FE can of course be overclocked too, but it's way more limited. I'd love to show you that one, but currently the two that I have are being used in my own system. Now MSI makes some really big claims about the cooling on this card. It's got this new dual zone radiator, which they say is superior, and it does have that full coverage cold plate as well. How much better is this really though compared to a normal 5090 with a 360mm AIO attached to it? Well, luckily I also have the Supreme Liquid to compare it to. No screen on this one, no fancy dual zone radiator, and this is a hybrid card too where the memory and the VRM are just air cooled. I ran both cards in Firmark, locked to 600 watts and 1500 RPM fan speed, and the Lightning was 1.5 degrees cooler on the core and 4 degrees cooler on the memory. It was also a bit quieter because it lacks that extra fan, but yeah, it's not a massive difference, at least in my testing. I will say though, the default fan profile on this thing is extremely relaxed. I mean, out of the box, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the quietest 5090 in the world. And of course there's the massive screen on the front, which you can do a couple things with. Mainly it's a monitoring tool, so there are a few things to choose from in terms of GPU and CPU stats, but you can go in, customize it to a few different layouts, and you can also use it to play videos. Screen quality is actually quite good, colors are vibrant. I don't see this becoming mainstream, but yeah, it's kind of cool to see. Now this is not a video of whether you should buy this thing or not, because no, it costs thousands of dollars more than a base 5090, and it's even a good chunk more than those 360mm liquid-cooled models. If you really want that full coverage block, Gigabyte has something that is pretty close, and if you really do just want the best cooling possible, just do a custom loop. But if you literally breathe money and you have no idea what to spend it on, then yeah, this thing is really, really fast. It's the fastest 5090 on the planet, maybe even the fastest GPU on the planet. I don't have the RTX 6000 Pro to compare it to, but you know, looking at the benchmarks online, I wouldn't be surprised if this is faster in some games. If this has showed me anything, it's how limited overclocking has become over time. The enhanced voltage and power ceiling that you have here, it reminds me of how overclocking used to be. So I really hope we get something like this in the future at a lower cost, because yeah, especially for these 360mm cards, they can definitely handle it. So yeah, there it is, the $5,000 1000 watt RTX 5090. I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going to be using this.